All right, welcome YouTube world. This is the unofficial review. I'm Seeds, and I'm going to be covering my first, essentially conversation that I would generally have with other NFL fans. That's kind of how I want these things to go, is based on NFL stories developing, as I would just discuss with my friends. I want those to be the conversations, or at least the focal point of the conversations, because again, that's usually where the meat and potatoes of what's going on in the NFL is between the fans' conversations. Because some fans might get caught up in their own team and a bunch of white noise that they're getting excited about. But for the most part, the conversations that I have with my friends are prevalent to what's going on in the NFL. And so the first story I want to talk about is Wentz. I just want to more or less bring out, hey, do you remember? Because one of the biggest things that I've been saying about Goff and Wentz was these guys weren't even going number one, number two. I guess I'm not shocked, because this happens every year where things kind of develop, or hype builds up, and the NFL media just jumps on that and runs. But that's one of the things I just want to talk about was, hey, I vividly remember one of the NFL analysts talking about Goff coming up, and where the 49ers are going to pass on him at that spot number 8, if he was still available. And the thing that gets me is that everyone just acted like, all right, number 1, number 2, Goff, Wentz. I'm just like, that wasn't that long ago that we weren't even thinking they would go top 5. So what the hell happened? Pretty much what it was that these two teams that needed a quarterback, I won't say panicked, but the hype built up and they were worried they weren't going to get their guys, so they came number 1, number 2. Essentially, it's supply and demand. That's one of the things I've been discussing about why these guys went so high, was it's just a matter of older quarterbacks are getting older. A lot of those starting quarterbacks that had been established quarterbacks, they're losing their edge, and so other teams are worrying that they're not going to have a franchise quarterback. So you see these teams that are paying more for what they're getting. And so that's one of the things I'm saying about Wentz. I'm not saying that he doesn't have talent. I'm not saying that he's not going to eventually figure it out. But I've had some major concerns just as an analytical NFL fan. I love watching football, regardless if it's my team or not. I just love it. But one of the things that I just want to bring up, especially being Philadelphia, is I want to be like, do you guys remember a guy named Nick Foles? Threw like 27 touchdowns, 2 or 3 picks over a period of, I want to say it was 12, 14 games. And everyone was like, holy crap, this guy's a star. He's going to get it done. And I want to say, where is he now? He's a backup quarterback. It wasn't that long ago. So there's a few things of why guys could be winning and looking a lot better than they really are. And I have some major concerns, especially going into today's game with the Steelers. A lot of it has to do with he hasn't really had to play with any type of pressure at all. He played the Cleveland Browns and the Chicago Bears, not exactly the most threatening rosters in the NFL. That's one of the things I've discussed about the Browns, is I don't know how they don't have more talent, being they've had so many dang first-round draft picks. It's peculiar. Anyhow, so let's not talk about them, but let's talk about why did he succeed? That was a big part of it. Was I looked at the beginning of the game, and a lot of them were dump off passes to his tight ends, who they did a lot of work. So it was kind of like he succeeded at first, and then he actually started getting it going, which is nothing wrong with that. But one of my biggest concerns, especially being in Philadelphia, is how is he going to deal when things aren't great? That's one of the things that I've been talking about with my friends a lot about is, it's really easy to do well and to look well and to say the right things when you're doing well. It's another to do it when you're down and out. It's another when critics are questioning you. It's another when you're up against the ropes. That to me tells me a lot more about a quarterback than when he's doing great or when he's playing crappy teams. And so it's one of those things too where big concern I have for today is he going to be able to keep up with Pittsburgh's offense? I don't think at all. I think that this could be it'll be one of those things too where the ball might go the right way. That's one of the things I love about football is any given Sunday anything can happen. But a big part of it is going to be, is he going to be able to keep his cool if Big Ben and Tony Brown and that offense starts racking up points? Is he going to be able to just focus on what he needs to do, or is he going to start thinking about everything he needs to do and he'll start throwing some picks? Some bad, ugly, freaking maybe pick sixes and shit. It's one of those things where I think that could very much happen. It's one of those things where, to predict the outcome of a game is pretty arrogant, just because there's so many factors that go into it. And that's one of the things that I do love about general football, is that teams win the games. They say defense wins championships. It would definitely look that way, but a lot of times I would say the most disciplined team is winning the game, and they have to, they have to have a pretty solid defense. But that's one of the things I'm looking for Wentz, is I feel like he's risen to the top, so to speak. Not really. I think a lot of the pros aren't necessarily buying too much into it. They do realize they've referred to it as 2 preseason games he's played thus far because of his opponents. but they're not really being. I don't feel they're really being honest with themselves in the situation, which is how is Wentz going to handle being down 14-0? How is he going to handle that kind of a pressure, especially against? I mean, that was one of the things that I was talking about with Kirk Cousins playing against Big Ben last week. Was that to me he was a deer in the headlights. He just kind of felt. Oh, I don't know if it was last week. Anyhow, I think it was last week. Anyhow, but yes, it just kind of seemed like. He did well, but when it came down to a threatening team that he had to keep up with, a big being down in a bad situation, he choked. And that it's just one of those things where I think what it was that they have this great image of Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins to me needs to be humble in the situation. He needs to just same thing with Wentz. I think Wentz is getting caught up with the success. The big problem is how is he going to handle the failure? Because to me that's when your character really comes out, is when you fail, when you fall. Can you get back up? Can you not let it get in your head and be like, crap, I just made a crappy decision. Crap, I just made it again. How is he going to handle those types of situations? To me, that's when you see, is he going to be a franchise quarterback? Is he going to be a fizzle and flutter type of thing where he'll look good for a little bit and then just fizzle out? And that's the other thing too. Is nobody has any film on this guy in a regular season game. No one knows how he's going to play in a certain circumstance. But once a team sees how you play in certain circumstances, they get to knowing what you're going to do. And so are you going to be able to succeed in spite of them knowing your traits and your tendencies? And so that's one of my biggest things for Wentz is that, I played two crappy teams, looked good. And that was the thing that was hilarious. Again, this is just the NFL talking about him. I'm not going to knock him for how they're covering him. But I just laughed at myself when, I think it was last week, they were playing, who the heck were they playing? I don't know, anyhow. But they were talking about how he finally had left them into the end zone, or led them into the end zone. And I couldn't believe it because I'm like, no, they just got a pick, brought it down to the 2, he threw a slant, and the guy just jumped in. And they were talking about how he's amazing. I'm just like, I'm not going to knock a guy for the circumstance. I mean, any other quarterback given that circumstance may have done the same thing and had the same results. So it's not something that's going to, the success or failure of others shouldn't be his fault. It's not his fault if guys are playing crappy against him. It's not his fault that. But again, my biggest thing is why? Why is it happening? Because that's going to depend on, is it going to continue to happen? Or again, like I said, is it going to be one of those, 15 minutes of fame types and we're joking about how crappy this guy is and blah, blah, blah. And everyone's going to forget about how everyone was talking about how great he was. So that's really what I want to focus on is he really good, or is it because of the circumstances? And right now I'm concerned, especially being in the, they call it the city of brotherly love in Philadelphia. I call it the city of eating quarterbacks because those guys have gone through, I want to say 4 quarterbacks in the last 4 years. The biggest problem that I would say with being there is that they'll love you when you're doing well, but they will give you hell when you're doing crappy, and they'll let you know about it. And that is really going to be a testament to what kind of quarterback he is going to be in the future, is how is he going to handle his fan base booing him and saying, to put somebody else in order because he's not getting it done. So let's see how that goes.